Welcome to OOTO, the Out of the Office Investigation.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Ben. Alex, I was reading this week about a worldview that completely stopped me in my tracks. It's an ancient Andean philosophy where time isn't a straight line you travel on, but a space you inhabit. It just fundamentally rewired how I thought about reality.
I know exactly what you mean. It's the idea that the universe isn't just a collection of objects, but a single, conscious, living being. It's a philosophy built not on rugged individualism, but on a sacred principle of reciprocity, a cosmic give and take that connects every person, every mountain, and every star.
Right? It's a perspective I think our modern world has a lot to learn from.
That's what we're investigating today. And to really get inside this way of thinking, we need to start where they did, with a surviving Inca hymn to the creator god, Viracocha. It's more than a prayer, it's a mission statement for an entire cosmos. So Ben, when you read these words, root of all, end of all, it feels like it's about more than just a deity. It sounds like they're describing a fundamental principle of existence itself.
Exactly, Alex. And what's amazing is that we even have these words. You have to remember, the Inca didn't have a written language as we know it, so their entire history, their science, their spirituality, it was all passed down orally. This hymn is a precious fragment that survived the conquest, and it is a profound statement of cosmic order. For the Inca, Viracocha wasn't some distant god on a throne. He was the organizing intelligence that emerged from the void, molded humanity from stone, and then set the sun and stars in motion. So this isn't just worship, it's a recognition that everything, from a blade of grass to the Milky Way, is part of a single, intentional, and living design. It's the philosophical bedrock for everything we're about to explore.
And to really understand this living design, we're going to follow its story. First, we'll map out that cosmic blueprint. Then, we'll investigate the social engine that made it work on a human scale, a concept called Ayni. After that, we'll witness the cataclysm that turned that world upside down. And finally, we'll explore the incredible persistence that has kept its heart beating to this day, and what that tells us about a possible future.
All right, Ben, let's start with that blueprint. If we're going to understand how this society functioned with such ingenuity for centuries, we have to see the world through their eyes. We need to look at their map of the universe. And I promise you, it is nothing like the one you learned in school.
This is the absolute key, Alex. The foundational concept is Pacha. In the Quechua language, it doesn't just mean world or earth, it means time and space simultaneously. Now think about that for a second. We see time as a river, right? It carries us from a fixed past to an unknown future. Space is just a static riverbank. But in the Andean worldview, they're the same thing. Time is cyclical, like the seasons, or like a great cosmic wheel constantly turning. A moment in time also has a physical location, so the past isn't gone, it's just another place in the landscape of reality that you can, in a sense, still access. From a psychological perspective, can you imagine how that changes your relationship with your ancestors or your own future? It's all part of one living, breathing entity.
And this unified time-space, this Pacha, is organized into three interconnected realms. Now, looking at this, it's really tempting to think of this as heaven, earth, and hell, but that's a complete misunderstanding. The Hanan Pacha, the upper world, is the realm of the sun, the stars, and its symbolic animal is the condor, a messenger who can fly to the heavens. The K Pacha is our world, the here and now, the world of the living, symbolized by the puma, representing power on earth. And the Uku Pacha, the inner world, is represented by the snake. But crucially, Ben, the Uku Pacha isn't a place of punishment. It's the source of life, right? It's where the spirits of our ancestors reside, and just as importantly, where seeds germinate before they burst forth into our world. It's a realm of immense potential. They aren't separate boxes. They are porous, constantly flowing into one another.
Exactly. And the primary bridge between these realms is right over our heads every single night. The Andean people saw the night sky as a perfect mirror of the earth. The great Vilcanota River that flows through their sacred valley had a celestial counterpart, the Milky Way, which they called Mayu, the celestial river. They saw it as part of a magnificent cosmic water cycle. They believed the Mayu literally drew water up from the primordial ocean at the edge of the world, carried it across the heavens, and then released it back to the earth as rain, nourishing the Kai Pacha. It's not just a collection of stars, it's a living, flowing river of life, constantly connecting the upper and middle worlds.
And their unique perspective gets even more fascinating when you look at their constellations. While Greco-Roman astronomy connects the bright dots of stars to form pictures, Andean stargazers focus just as intently on the Llano-Fuyu, the dark, starless patches within the Milky Way. These dark clouds of interstellar dust weren't empty. They were the most important constellations. They were seen as the spirits or shadows of animals vital to life on Earth. The most critical was Jacana, the llama, who appears to be drinking water from the celestial river. The brightness of the stars in her eyes was believed to directly predict the health and fertility of the llama herds in the Puna Highlands. This wasn't abstract mythology. This was a survival guide written in the heavens. It was a cosmic calendar that told you when to plant, when the rains would come, and how your herds would fare. You're listening to OOTOTO with research by El Campesino.
Okay, so we have this incredible cosmic blueprint, Ben. A universe that is alive, interconnected, and cyclical. But the big question is, how do you actually live by it? How do you build a society, a massive empire no less, based on these principles? That's where we find the true engine of Andean civilization, Alex. It's a single, elegant concept that governed every single interaction, from the family to the state to the gods themselves.
And that concept is Aini. It means sacred reciprocity. The translation, today for you, tomorrow for me, is simple but profoundly deep. This isn't just about being nice to your neighbor or trading favors. Aini is understood to be the fundamental law of the universe, the active force that maintains balance in a living cosmos. If you take from the earth, you must give back. If your community helps you build your house, you owe them your labor in return. To violate Aini isn't just a social mistake. It's an act that actively creates cosmic imbalance, that harms the entire community and the world itself. It's a sacred duty. And you can see this principle scaling beautifully from the smallest unit to the largest. It all starts with the Ayu, which is the foundational community, a kind of extended family or clan. Land wasn't privately owned. It belonged to the Ayu and was worked collectively. If a family needed help with their harvest, the whole community showed up, knowing that when their time of need came, the same would be done for them. This scales up to the entire Inca Empire through the Mita system. This was a form of labor tax where every able-bodied man would contribute a period of work to massive state projects, building thousands of miles of roads, incredible temples, or agricultural terraces. In return, the state provided food security from giant storehouses, feasts, and infrastructure. It was a social contract. And finally, Aini governed the spiritual relationship with Pachamama, Mother Earth. You could not simply take from her, you had to give back through offerings of coca leaves or corn beer, maintaining that sacred balance. It was a conversation with the living world.
Now, Alex, this is where things get truly ingenious. The Andes are one of the most vertically extreme landscapes on Earth. So how do you ensure everyone has enough to eat? You apply Aini to the geography itself. They developed what scholars call the vertical archipelago. A single Ayu, one community, would control small plots of land at many different altitudes, sometimes days walk apart. Down in the warm Yunga valleys, they'd grow coca and tropical fruits. In the temperate Quechua zone, they'd cultivate maize. And way up in the cold, windswept Puna, they would farm hundreds of varieties of potatoes and graze their llama herds. This wasn't trade between separate groups. It was one unified community managing a diverse portfolio of microclimates as a single economic unit. It's a masterpiece of ecological engineering. If a hailstorm wiped out the maize crop, the potatoes up high would be fine. It was a social safety net woven into the very fabric of the mountains.
But what happens when a world built on this intricate system of balance and reciprocity collides with a world built on conquest and extraction? This balanced world was about to face the disruption so absolute that it was seen not just as an invasion, but as a cosmic cataclysm that literally turned their universe inside out.
The timing for the invaders was tragically, almost supernaturally perfect. Years before Pizarro even arrived, a plague, almost certainly smallpox, swept down from the north, killing the Inca emperor and his chosen heir. This unleashed a devastating civil war for the throne between his two sons, Huáscar and Atahualpa. The empire tore itself apart. Just as Atahualpa emerged victorious, his armies exhausted, and the nation divided, Pizarro's tiny force of 168 men appeared. He arranged a meeting with the new emperor at Cajamarca, and in a shocking act of betrayal, ambushed and captured Atahualpa. The Inca, in a desperate attempt to deal with these strange beings, offered a ransom beyond imagination, a room filled once with gold and twice with silver. The Spanish took the treasure and then executed Atahualpa anyway. The leader, the son of the sun god, was gone. The cosmos was decapitated.
And this slide, Alex, perfectly illustrates why this was more than just a military conquest. It was a collision of entirely different realities. To the Inca, gold wasn't money. It was sacred. It was the sweat of the sun. Silver was the tears of the moon. These were divine substances used to adorn temples and create objects for rituals that maintained cosmic order. The Spanish saw gold and thought only of its economic value. They saw a life-sized garden in Cusco with plants, animals, and shepherds all crafted from pure gold and silver, a breathtaking offering to the gods.
and their only impulse was to melt it all down into anonymous bars to be shipped back to Spain. Can you imagine the horror? Seeing something sacred, something that embodies the divine, treated as mere raw material. It's the ultimate violation of Aini. It's taking everything and giving nothing back but destruction.
You're listening to OOTO with research by El Campesino. For the Andean people, this wasn't just a political defeat. They had a word for it, Pachacuti. It's a Quechua term for a great, world-altering event where Pacha, time and space, is turned over, or Kuti. The world is flipped upside down. But a Pachacuti could also be a moment of creative renewal, the end of one great cycle and the beginning of a better one. This, however, was a Pachacuti of pure chaos. It was a profound violation of cosmic order. The sacred principle of Aini was shattered. The flow between the three realms was severed. The sun had gone out, the sky had fallen, the cosmos was broken.
Following a disruption that total, you'd expect the story to end. You'd expect this worldview to be erased, buried under a new religion and a new economic system. But this is not a story of defeat. The narrative now shifts to one of quiet, profound, and deep-rooted persistence. It's the story of a culture that refused to die.
I don't think I've ever heard a more powerful summary of resilience than this Andean proverb. It's just incredible. It reframes the entire experience of colonization. It wasn't a final death. It was a period of being buried, of going dormant. The core of the culture, the language, the worldview. It was a seed holding all of its potential in the dark, just waiting for the conditions to be right to sprout again. This connects so deeply back to their cyclical view of time, doesn't it, Ben? It's not an end. It's just the winter phase of a much longer cycle.
Absolutely. And that persistence took so many clever forms, often hiding in plain sight. It wasn't always about open, violent rebellion. More often, it was about embedding their culture within the dominant colonial structure. They practiced syncretism, blending their deities with Catholic saints. They could pray to the Virgin Mary, but in their hearts they were venerating Pachamama, Mother Earth, whose attributes of fertility and motherhood aligned so well. The languages, Quechua and Aymara, survived against all odds and are still spoken by millions. Sacred rituals, like making offerings to the mountain spirits, the Apus, continued, sometimes secretly, sometimes woven into the dates of Christian festivals. And they wove their histories and their cosmic maps into their textiles, using complex patterns called palay as a kind of writing system the Spanish could not decipher. They kept the flame alive.
And what's so psychologically fascinating, Alex, is that the long-term goal that emerged from this resistance wasn't rooted in revenge. It was shaped by that core philosophy of Aini. The ultimate aim wasn't retribution against their oppressors, but the restoration of cosmic harmony. Justice in this worldview isn't about an eye for an eye. It's about healing. It's about closing a circle of imbalance that has been opened. There's this deep, patient belief that the cosmic cycle, the Pacha, will eventually right itself. This shifts the focus away from past grievances and towards the work of restoring future balance. It's a very different model from Western ideas of punitive justice.
And that very idea of a world righting itself brings our investigation into the present day. Because that deep-seated belief in a return to balance has reframed the concept of Pachacuti itself, not just as a historical disaster to be mourned, but as an ongoing and even hopeful process of the world returning to its proper alignment.
So let's be very clear about what this new, modern Pachacuti means. This table draws a crucial distinction. Western ideas of justice often center on retribution, punishing a past wrong. But the modern Andean concept is about restitution. It is not a movement of anger, but of joy. It is a returning to the self. It's a forward-looking movement focused on restoring balance, and it's being achieved not through violence, but through a powerful and celebratory reclaiming of everything that was suppressed: indigenous identity, language, spirituality, and a sacred connection to the land. This is not about tearing others down. It's about building their own world back up.
You're listening to OOO with research by El Campesino. Exactly. In this worldview, the retribution is not an act of vengeance. The retribution is the resurgence itself. It is the profound political, cultural, and spiritual act of the indigenous world rising back to its rightful place of dignity. We see this happening all across the Andes today. It's there in major political movements, like the establishment of Bolivia as a plurinational state, which officially recognizes indigenous worldviews in its constitution. It's in the fierce legal battles to protect land and water rights from multinational mining and oil companies. The roots of this ancient culture are strong, and new life is sprouting from them. The seed is growing into the light.
And this, ultimately, brings us to our final provocative question, one that extends this ancient principle far beyond the Andes and asks us to look in the mirror. The Andean cosmos is built on Aini, on sacred reciprocity, on the undeniable truth that you cannot take without giving back, that all life exists in a delicate balance. Our modern global civilization, by contrast, is built almost entirely on a principle of extraction. We extract resources from the earth, we extract labor from communities, we extract value from markets, often without a thought to restoring balance. So as we face cascading global crises, from climate change to mass inequality, the Andean worldview poses a direct challenge to us all. If Aini is a fundamental law of the universe, what does our world owe to the balance it has so profoundly disrupted? What would it truly look like if our global society began to operate on the principle of today for you, tomorrow for me? That question is a powerful place to end. Thinking about Pacha and Aini isn't just a historical exercise, Ben. It feels like a genuine alternative path, a lens that could help us reimagine our own future. Thank you for joining us on this investigation. I'm Alex.
And I'm Ben.
And this has been OOTO.